Have you ever had a job that just didn't feel right? Not because of the people or the hours or even the pay, but because deep down you sensed that something in the building itself was off. That's how I felt about the small-town diner I worked at the summer I turned 19. A place that seemed to exist half in the present and half in a shadowy past that clung to its faded wallpaper and creaky floorboards. Back then, I never believed in ghosts, but I do now. This is the story of the night I met the Diner Apparition. I grew up in a sleepy little town you've never heard of. The kind of place where nothing much happens and everyone's business is common knowledge. My family had lived there for generations, but even with that, I'd always felt like an outsider. Awkward, restless, a little too tuned into things most people ignored. The only place open late was the diner on Main Street. Ethel's place, it was called, though nobody named Ethel had owned it in decades. Still, the locals stuck to tradition. It was the kind of spot where the regulars nursed mugs of bad coffee for hours, truckers stopped by on their way to through, and teenagers snuck in after curfew for fries and milkshakes. I got the job after high school graduation. Third shift, midnight to 8 a.m. Not exactly glamorous, but it fit my nocturnal tendencies. Plus, the owner, a gruff old guy named Ray, paid cash and didn't care if I had piercings or dyed hair. Ray warned me the first night, "You get some strange customers late at night, but don't let it spook you. Most just want a slice of pie and a warm place to sit." He never looked me in the eye when he said that. I chalked it up to small-town eccentricity. I figured I could handle whatever the night dragged in. I was wrong. The diner itself was stuck in the 60s. Linoleum floors, neon signs, stools upholstered in cracked red vinyl. The jukebox in the corner hadn't worked in years, but sometimes when the wind howled, it would emit a faint, ghostly whine. At first, my only company during those late hours were the crickets outside, the buzzing of the kitchen lights, and the ever-present scent of burnt coffee. But it didn't take long for weird things to start happening. It was little things at first: silverware vanishing, coffee mugs moving from one table to another, salt shakers left in strange places. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps in the back storage room, but when I went to check, it would be empty. Once, I heard the bathroom door slam so hard it rattled the windows, even though nobody was there. I started joking with Ray about the diner ghost. He never laughed. Instead, he'd just mutter, "Some things here got a history, that's all," before quickly changing the subject. It was a Saturday night in late July. The air outside was thick and oppressive, the kind of heat that pressed against the windows and made the neon signs flicker. I'd just finished cleaning up after a group of truckers who left the place smelling like cheap cologne and diesel fuel. The clock on the wall read 3:07 a.m. I was refilling the sugar dispensers when the bell above the door jingled, a sound that never failed to make my heart jump in those quiet hours. I looked up. A man walked in. There was something off about him from the start. He looked about 40, wearing a suit that seemed outdated, the kind you'd see in an old black and white movie. His hair was slicked back, face pale under the fluorescent lights. He didn't meet my eyes, just drifted to the booth by the window. Table 4. The air grew colder, as if someone had opened a walk-in freezer. I shook it off, grabbed a menu, and went to greet him. "Good evening," I said, trying to sound friendly. "Can I get you something?" He didn't look up, just kept staring out the window at the empty parking lot. "Coffee," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I nodded, forced a smile, and poured him a cup. As I set the mug down, his hand brushed mine. Ice cold. He flinched at the contact, then turned his head. For a moment, his eyes met mine. I will never forget those eyes. They were grey, like static on an old TV, and held a kind of sadness that felt too heavy for one person. He didn't touch the coffee. He just sat, staring out into the night. I tried to busy myself cleaning, but I couldn't stop glancing over. He never moved. The clock ticked. The neon buzzed. Then, things got strange. The lights began to flicker, then dim, as if struggling to stay alive. The jukebox in the corner, dead for years, suddenly sputtered to life, playing a warbling tune that sounded like something from the 1940s. A cold breeze swept through the diner, making the napkin dispensers rattle. I looked over at the man. He hadn't moved. I went to the back to fetch more coffee, and when I returned, he was gone. I blinked. No way he could have slipped past me. I'd have heard the doorbell ring. The mug was still on the table, steaming, but the seat was empty. I rushed outside. The parking lot was deserted. No cars, no footsteps, nothing. A chill raced down my spine. When Ray arrived at 6 a.m., I told him everything. He just nodded, sighed, and walked to the counter, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "That booth by the window, huh?" he asked, not looking up. I nodded. He set his mug down, his hands shaking just a little. "You're not the first to see him," Ray said, "and you won't be the last." He pulled out a faded newspaper clipping from a drawer and slid it across the counter. I picked it up. The headline read, "Local man found dead in diner, 1957. There was a black and white photo of a man, dark suit, slicked back hair, eyes hollow. It was him. Ray explained that in the late 50s, a traveling salesman had dropped dead of a heart attack at table 4, right by the window. Ever since, workers and customers alike had reported seeing him, always in the dead of night, always staring out the window, always gone before dawn. He never finishes his coffee, Ray muttered. Never did. After that, things escalated. Sometimes I'd find that same booth set for one. A cup of coffee steaming, even if I hadn't brewed any. Late at night, I'd catch the faint scent of old cologne drifting through the air or hear footsteps crossing the empty floor. Once, a regular, a tough old farmer named Pete, came in around 4 a.m., looked over at the booth, and went pale as milk. "You see him too?" Pete whispered, voice trembling. I just nodded. We sat in silence, staring at the empty seat until the sun came up. Word got around, as it always does in small towns. Some customers would refuse to sit in that booth, no matter how busy the place got. Others would come in just to try and catch a glimpse of the apparition, though most left disappointed, or too shaken to ever come back. My last night working the diner was a stormy one. Lightning flashed, rain pounded the roof, and the place felt colder than ever. Around 3 a.m. I was wiping down the counter when I heard the bell jingle. I looked up. He was back. This time, he looked different. His suit was ragged, hair disheveled, face even paler than before. He slid into his usual seat at table 4, but instead of staring out the window, he turned and looked straight at me. I froze. He raised a trembling hand, beckoning me over. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I couldn't move. I approached, legs like lead. He spoke, his voice low and urgent. "Please," he whispered, I can't find my way home." His eyes, those endless grey eyes, were filled with despair. I wanted to help, but didn't know how. I reached out but as my fingers touched his, he vanished, gone, like smoke in the wind. The lights snapped back to normal. The jukebox fell silent, and warmth slowly returned to the room. All that remained was the faint scent of old cologne and an untouched mug of coffee. I never saw him again after that. I quit the diner the next week, unable to take the night shift anymore. But every so often, I'll drive by Ethel's place and see the neon sign flickering in the darkness. Sometimes, I wonder if he's still there, waiting, watching, hoping for someone to help him find his way home. Ray says the sightings come and go, but Table 4 is always set, just in case. So if you ever find yourself in a lonely diner, late at night, and see a man in an old suit sitting by the window, don't be afraid. Just pour him a cup of coffee. Maybe, just maybe, you'll be the one who helps him finally rest. Would you be brave enough working this diner? If so, drop your CV in the comments. This has been Truth is Terror. Until next time, sleep well.